So earlier in the week, we talked about, when we were talking about season management, we created an event for Saturday. So when I go to race management here, we're going to jump in and we're going to start managing that event. So as I take a look at the calendar icon in the upper left-hand corner, today's event is the one it defaults to. I want to pretend today is Saturday. So we're going to talk about the 9th. During the afternoon, when I did the webinar then, we used the 410 sprint car class. So everything we're going to do now is going to be through this MRP stock car class. So we're going to talk about connecting to orbits and Westhold as well. Just so you're aware, that's something that we're going to talk about. You can see orbits opening on my screen now. We'll talk about connecting to orbits during our heat race portion, and during the feature portion, we'll talk about connecting to Westhold. But I'm going to start in the setup tab here for this MRP stock cars. Will be the class that I use. The things that we'll manage in the setup tab include pill draw, transponder options, and required registration. I'll talk about all three of those things. Pill draw options, really straightforward here. How do you want the program to handle the pill draw in the entry screen? At check-in auto draw is what I leave it as. That's the default. That will automatically draw a pill number for the driver when you find them. So when you search for and find the driver, it'll just give you a pill draw number, basically, a two-step process in one. There's other options for the program automatically drawing a pill number. There's the at check-in auto draw before you find a driver. There's the options to add the pill number after they're in the entry list also. And then there's a couple of manual entry options as well if you want to manually type the pill draw number in. Transponder options on the right, similar in terms of being very straightforward, right? Do you use transponders? If so, do you have a stock of transponders people can rent from you? Pretty obvious stuff there. The required registration option is here as well. This is a play off of registrations that we talked about yesterday in season management. You have a registration out there. You can use that registration like a membership or a license check, either for an individual event or throughout the course of your season. You select the registration here that's required for that event. And then when a driver enters, if they have not registered, so they do not have that license or membership, you'll have the option to allow them to compete without registering or grant them a temporary license. Those are the two checkbox options that you'll have. They tie in with points and pay. So when you're calculating points and pay at the end of your event, there will be options to allow points or pay. Both can be done individually for drivers. You can apply points basically for drivers who have a license or a temp license, or you can apply points to only drivers who have that license or membership or have filled out the registration, basically. So that's what the required registration does. Really comes in handy if you're a series. If you're a series that required registration is out there, a lot of series will only amass points for drivers who have a membership or have a license or who have registered. It's an easy way for everybody, a track or a series, to manage that. I'll jump to the entry screen here. We'll come back to MRP Live. Again, I'm going to toggle to the stock car class, and we're going to start adding drivers to our entry list. A couple of different ways to find a driver. First, on the left, there's the competitors list. This will basically be a list of drivers who have raced with you before or who have registered with you. So you scroll through the list. You can filter this list by car number, right? So I can type a car number at the top, and it'll bring up a list of search results based off of the number that you type. But you basically just click the name on the left. Second way to find a driver is through the scan barcode option. We have MRP cards, we call them. Those MRP cards with the barcode are also available in the app for drivers who have claimed their profiles. But you click in here, you scan the barcode on the back of the card or from their phone in the app if you've got a barcode scanner, and it bypasses that search process. So you can find them, immediately and quickly. Search at the top of the screen is the third way to find a driver. It's pretty straightforward here. It's just a string of text. We're just going to start typing in a driver name, and it'll bring a list of search results in accordance with that driver. So I can click on the driver name from there. So however you find a driver, whether that's through the barcode scan, through the search, or through the tray, it'll bring you to the same screen, right? Here you can see an example of an entrant having an active suspension as well. We talked about suspensions Monday when we talked about season management. So here you can see the custom message and the checkbox to allow the entry with the suspension. But beyond that, beyond the special circumstances like a suspension or a registration check, there is there are 4 things that we need to put somebody on an entry list. First, pill draw number. Now this I have it set to auto draw, so it drew me an 8. That box is grayed out. I can't edit that field. That's my pill draw number for the night is the 8. Second thing in here is car number. Car number, just what it sounds like, number on the side of the car. The program will not allow duplicate car numbers on a per class basis. So if I go in here as 23, somebody else shows up and says they're number 23, you'd have to put an X or an initial or something like that behind it. You can also mark this as default, so it shows up every time you put that driver into the entry list for this class. Next thing is car owner. This comes up in 2 instances where you have to worry about car owner. One, if you're doing owner points, that's a rare thing anymore. Not a lot of racetracks do it. The track that I work at does. Most other tracks don't. Some series still do out there. But if you're doing owner points, every driver needs to have an owner listed here. If you're not doing owner points, then the only time you'd put an owner in this field is if someone other than the driver is getting paid. And whether that's the driver's name in an LLC or a different person's name or a business name or whatever, however you need the check made out to, that's what you would put in this owner field. So if someone other than the driver is getting paid, they go in the owner field here. You can also mark payout goes to owner in that instance, and you can also mark default if you want that to show up every week for that driver when they enter. Alternate payee, I'm also going to talk about here briefly. It's not widely used, but there is a special circumstance for some series and racetracks where if someone other than the owner and the driver is the person getting paid, you would put them in the alternate payee field. So it's a really specific circumstance, right? It's if you're doing owner points, so you've got a driver listed and you've got an owner listed for owner points, but then there's a third party beyond that getting paid. And most typically what we see is it's actually the driver's LLC. But if that is the situation that you're in, add them as an alternate payee. It's very rare. Most of you won't see it unless you specifically ask for it, but it is an option that's available. Fourth and final thing we need to put somebody to an entry list is a transponder number, right? Really simple. Number on the front of the transponder. If it's their own, mark it as the default in the checkbox. That way it shows up every time you enter that driver. If it's rented from you, mark the transponder rented box. Later in the night when you run the transponder list report, there'll actually be a list of people who rented a transponder from you, making it easier to chase those people down. Still always advised to take some kind of collateral from them, like a driver's license or something. But at least this way you'll have that list of who rented. So again, 4 things that are required to go into an entry list: pill draw number, car number, owner, but only if it applies, and then transponder number. After that, you should be all set. Now, there are other things in this screen, which I will show you, but again, those are the 4. First, lineup override. If you have a driver who needs to start in the back for whatever reason, whether they're a rookie driver or shaking down a new car or whatever, you can use lineup override to start them in the back for the heats or for all races. Payment amount, payment method, and contingency information you most likely won't see. It's only available upon request. It's something that we've set aside for like Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series and USMTS. But if you do year-long contingency prizes, like their Sunoco race fuels, heat race wins, or those types of things, crew chief of the year, whatever, you can add those in contingencies and we can walk you through that process. Last things in here that I'll show you is the competitor information off to the left. You get this information by having the driver register. You can see their age, if they've claimed their profile, and if their address is on file, as well as if they've turned in any external forms. But then in the confirmed membership section, you can also see if they've registered or not. They have, and so we're good. We're going to add them to the entry list. You can still edit all of the competitor information from here. You can assign them an MRP card if needed. You can put in a name change request if needed, but otherwise that driver is in the entry list. So I'm just going to add 10 drivers to our entry list here so we can have ourselves a 10-car race with our MRP stock car class. Let me get through that. What do I got? 5 now. 6, 7, and 8. Perfect. All right, so we've got 10 cars entered into our event. They're going to have a 10-car race. So there we are. We'll move ahead now to the races tab. Races is where you're going to start setting your format for the evening, right? The types of races that you're going to run, whether that's qualifying or heat races or A features or B features or whatever. A lot of different options here. You can copy this from previous races or you can add from scratch. And to be honest with you guys, with races tab information, this is typically something I'll do like before I get to the racetrack or if I'm at the pit gate before the gates open when I have a couple extra minutes. I generally have a decent idea of how many cars I'm going to get. I generally know what the format's going to be, so I can add 3 heats in a feature here. And then if I need to add a B main later on or need to take away a heat race later on, I can. But just to kind of give myself a head start, do this in advance. But it is very simple and fast and easy to do. I'll go ahead and add races. For the purposes of this training, I'm just going to do 1 heat race and 1 feature. But keep in mind, you could do 3 heats. You could do A features. You could do B features. You could do dashes or qualifying sessions or, really whatever you want in here. I'm also going to put in the number of laps in this screen and the number of cars that go to tech here as well. One thing I will tell you on this screen is if you're doing a qualifying race, do not put a number of laps in. Whatever you put in here will transfer to your timing system when you export the lineups. We don't want a 2 in there. Most people, that's their first thought, to put a 2 in for qualifying. Everybody gets 2 laps, right? But actually what'll happen then is after the first car is done, your timing system will automatically checkered flag the race. That's not what you want. So don't put anything in the laps field if you're doing a qualifying session. Other things you can do in this screen, you can rename your races, right? So instead of heat, you need to call it a qualifier. Instead of B feature, you need to call it a last chance showdown. Whatever you need to do, change the race names. You can also add race sponsors here. Your Bob's Garage Heat 1, your H&H Mobile Home Service A feature. Those types of things are in here as well. Last thing I'll point you to in this screen is the transfers option. This is probably the most missed item for a track first starting out. Typically, that's the most common phone call from a first night user is I'm getting to my A main. I'm ready to calculate lineups, but it's telling me I don't have any cars in the race. That's because you forgot to set your transfers. So for me, I'm going to transfer them all to the A feature. You could transfer the top 5 to the A, everybody else to a B, whatever else. If you're doing a passing points format, we'll change this to from group because now instead of transferring per heat race, I'm grouping all of the heat races together into 1 points tally and transferring from there. So then you would just take the total number to the A main. If it's 16 or 18 or 20 or whatever it is, you would take your top 18 from group to the A, everybody else to a B if it applies those types of things. Lineups then is the next option. Is what it sounds like, right? We're calculating our lineups. It'll always come to the next race that isn't completed in this screen by default. So I'm going to calculate lineups for heat 1. There are 100 ways to calculate lineups in my race pass. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. There are a ton of ways to calculate lineups in my race pass. What I would advise you to do is get into the sandbox, figure out what lineup scheme is right for you. And then when you go to the settings, you can favorite various lineup schemes by placing a checkbox or check mark in the checkbox. And then on race night, instead of scrolling through the entire list, you can come to the My Lineup section and you can see the lineups that will apply for you, whether that's heat from qualifying or the point invert or the pill draw or whatever. So I'm going to choose heat from pill draw because I did a pill draw and that's how I want to line up my heat races. Perfect. There we go. Lineups are ready to go. If you need to, you can manually adjust this by dragging and dropping. If you want to manually set the lineups, you absolutely can. You can click in the race type and click in the name over on the right. However you want to handle it. Either way, lineups are good. Once lineups are saved, there is a tool that I want to show you called the lineup monitor screen. If you have a location at your racetrack where you post lineups typically, whether that's a whiteboard that you write them on or somewhere where you staple paper lineups or whatever, I invite you to have the person who does that job do something more important. We have a lineup monitor. It auto refreshes every 30 or so seconds. It only displays lineups that have been created. As soon as a race is saved as completed in the results tab, the lineup falls off of here. So it is only showing you lineups for upcoming races. And again, with the auto refresh, you can just set this up, put an HDMI laptop into a TV or mirror it from an iPad or whatever. Have this up, have it displaying your lineups all night. Obviously, the lineups are also in the app. Do not waste someone's time having to write lineups on a whiteboard. That person can be doing other things to help your event flow more efficiently. Let us take care of this. Lineup Monitor is the tool. So then the question becomes, how do I take these lineups? How do I get them into my timing system? Well, there's two timing systems out there that we work with, Orbitz and Westhold. They're the timing systems for like 98% of the circle tracks in the country, Orbitz, Westhold. I'm going to open up Orbitz here when I connect to the heat race. And then when I connect to the feature, I will remove Orbitz and open up Race Manager from Westhold and connect that way. So you can see both times. So if you're a Westhold track, this won't apply for you. If you're an Orbitz track, pay attention now. The feature won't apply for you. But they're very similar in how they connect. So here's Orbitz. We have a program that lives between the two called MRP Live. MRP Live is a small application that I would have you download and install and run on the same machine that your timing system is running on. If I go to My Race Pass, there's an MRP Live tab. You can find it there. There's the download application link. And then all that's left is connecting the two, which is overwhelmingly simple. In the distribution tab of Orbitz, there is an IP address and a port number, 192.168.1.218. Put it there. If you're using the same computer every week with the same internet connection every week, your IP address won't change. There's also a port number, 50,000. The port number is always 50,000. In my 3.5 years here, have only seen it not be 50,000 one time. It's 50,000. That's the port number. Make sure you select the right timing system. So now that you've done that the first time, do it on a test and tune night or whatever, connect the first time. It should never change, the race data part. Like I said, unless you change laptops or something. The only thing you'll have to worry about changing on a night-by-night basis is this connection code. Every event in My Race Pass will generate its own specific and unique connection code, so we know what event to send the data to and where it's coming from and those types of things. And now I'll connect. And what you're going to find is your night's going to become very repetitive here. What'll more than likely happen is the entries part is the most important part. We have to get the right driver with the right car number, with the right transponder, with the right owner. You have to. That's the most important thing. From there, you're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to calculate your lineups. You're going to use MRP Live to push your lineups to Orbitz. So I'll press Get Lineups here. And now I'm going to come to Orbitz and import it. So when I go back to registration, instead of managing your competitor database, instead of creating all your race options from scratch, I'm just going to import groups and runs. I'll start with the groups. That's my class data, right? So when you're done with the entries, these are the class options that you'll have. I have two classes. I brought them both over at once. Once you've got the class data in there, you can add the runs. The runs are the race lineups, basically, the race types and lineups. So finish. I've got heat 1. Here's my lineup for heat 1. You can see the start position field, the transponders, all those types of things. And now I am ready to time heat 1. I don't have to do anything more than that. So I'll go to timing. And actually, Orbitz provides this little track simulator, the best fake race track of all time. So I will, in Orbitz, green flag the race. And in my track simulator, which arguably is more exciting than NASCAR at Indianapolis, I can run the race. So you'll start to see the times come through in Orbitz as they normally would. I messed up a transponder number. I've got one transponder that's not right. It's going to be that guy. Perfect. This will be a really good example for later on. So that's good. But either way, data's coming through. Now, there's one other option in My Race Pass that I want to show you. Under MRP Live, there's what we call a lap viewer. Lap viewer is the live timing screen, right? So I can see the running order. If my race type is a qualifying or practice or hot laps or time trials or anything like that, the best lap view will be the default view, so you can see the lap times. There's also options for positions gained. There's options for average lap time, including the average over the last 3 laps. So you can tell the crowd, over the last 3 seconds, a tenth faster than for whatever. And then there's also a lap leaders, so you can see everybody who's led a lap. Put this screen in front of your announcer. Give your announcer the tools to sound smarter and better and more prepared on your broadcast. It will benefit you. It will benefit him or her. It will benefit your fans watching from home. Give this information to your announcer. But we'll say that that's our heat race, right? Let's get the rest of this lap in here. And stop. And orbits. And checkered flag. And stop the race. Perfect. So your interactions in orbits will not change, right? Green, purple, green, yellow, red, checkered, stop. The checkered and stop is what prompts orbits to send the results data back to my race pass. So now when I come to my race pass and I come to the results screen, you can manually click on these names to bring the driver's order over in the order that you click, but it's a lot easier to say, hey, heat race number 1 up here, heat race number 1, perfect. There's my options. There's one thing that I'd like to show you here. You can see this is the driver whose transponder did not work, right? We had the wrong transponder number in for them or whatever. So when I click on this driver to manually add him to the back, he actually finished 6th, right? I can drag and drop him up to 6th and save, and there we go. So you can still manually manipulate these results. You can mark your DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag. Let's say you saved these results and that he was lighted to scales or whatever, or tubed to 383 in a 360 race or whatever. He got DQ'd in tech. I can come back here at any point, mark the DQ, save as completed. That pushes him to the back. He's DQ'd for the race. So you can still manually manipulate these results. So like I said, I would show you the heat race in orbits and then the feature in Westhold. So let me close orbits and disconnect MRP Live. And I will do the rest through Race Manager. So let me open Race Manager. And we'll start again. So we'll go back to lineups. Heat race is done. In my race pass, I'm ready to calculate my A feature. I'm going to line them up straight up from how they finished the heat. You can line them up however you want. Point averages, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Calculate. Now my feature lineup is good. But what if you say, I want to do an invert? Well, I can use lineup options to choose either an invert or a redraw. An invert, let's just pick the top 6 are going to be inverted here. So if there's 6, save as lineups, we're good to go. Same thing with a redraw, right? I can do lineup options. I can do redraw. I'm going to pick the number of cars that are going to redraw. We'll say it's 4. I can either do it manually if they're drawn on the front stretch, or I can auto redraw them, however you want to do it. There's my redraw order. Saved. We're good. Now, when I go back to the lineup monitor screen, I can see the new lineup is posted. My heat race is gone because that was saved as completed. My A feature is ready to go. The screen auto updates. Don't ever have to think about it at all. Now connecting the lineups to Race Manager. So let me, because I know I've got a previous race in here that I did. Let me delete this because I use the same event for everything in Race Manager because they're all demo events and it doesn't matter what I'm doing here. There we go. All deleted. Starting fresh, starting from scratch. It's the same process. When I go to the Setup tab of Race Manager, I can open MRP Live. The IP address is listed in here. The port number is still always 50,000. That has not changed. Select Race Manager for race data. Then the only thing you'll have to do week to week is paste the new connection code from the event and connect. It's the same process, just a different place to find the IP address and port number. It's possible, though, that I did not close the Orbit software in time to connect Race Manager. So let me try this again. I'm going to close this completely. You can't run Orbits and Race Manager at the same time, which will be an issue for exactly 0 racetracks in the country, but it is an issue for me right now. What am I doing wrong here? 192.168.1.218, 50,000, boom, 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 boom. My computer is still trying to tell me that Race Manager is open. No, that Orbits is open, excuse me. Let's try this again here. I'm going to close this. Yes, I want to exit. Now I'll launch from web here. Open MRP Live. What am I doing here? Let me try to close Race Manager completely and try again. Technical difficulties, of course. There we go. Okay. I just had to restart Race Manager to get the two databases to jive. That'll, again, never be an issue for anybody but somebody who uses them both at the same time. So I've got MRP Live up and connected. It's the same process, right? I'm going to get lineups. And when I get lineups, when I come to the Assign tab, it's even more seamless in Race Manager than it is in Orbits. You don't have to try to import anything. It's auto-imported. So my competitors list for my classes are in here. And then my A feature 1, which is the lineup that I created, is here and ready to be timed. So I can start a demo mode race here. I've still got the same problem of somebody's transponder not being correct, but that's okay. Otherwise, works the exact same way, just in Race Manager instead of in Orbits. I'll get 2 laps in. I'll checkered flag. I'll stop. We're good to go there. Perfect. Now, when I come back to my race pass, I will again be able to come to the results tab. You can see the last pending race is up here. I can bring it on over. And again, I'm missing data because of the transponder issue that I'd had previously. So I'll add him. We know he finished 9th. Boom. Save is completed. We're good to go. All set. And that's connecting to Race Manager. Like I said, it's even more easy than it is in in Orbits. And in Orbits, it's fairly easy as well. Before we get too much further here, I'm going to do some housekeeping that I was supposed to do at the very beginning of this and completely forgot to do. If you're watching via Facebook Live, put in the comments what track you're with, just so we can track who's there. If you've got questions about any of this on Facebook Live, put them in the comments. We can either answer them now or circle back later on. If you're watching on Google Meet, same thing. There's a chat window. Put the name of your track in the chat window so we can figure out who's here and who's not. And if you got questions, put them in the chat. My colleague Dakota is in here to help answer those questions while we run through this. Housekeeping done. Last step here is points and pay. Points and pay tab. This is another thing that you can do in advance to prepare for adding points and payouts at the end of the night. Up in the upper right, there's a settings option where you can find your points and pay schemes. I've got a lot of schemes in here. There are some global schemes from Crate Racing USA and USRA and WSOTA and IMCA and you know, I think every other sanctioning body. POWRi has got one in here as well. NASCAR's got one in here. So we've got global schemes for everybody, but you can create your own as well if that applies. You can also add payout schemes, which is the very same interface as creating a point scheme. You're just working in dollars instead of points. Got a question in here. Is there a way to easily delete on Race Manager? Good news, Tiffany, is that Dakota is a scorer who uses Race Manager every race that he does. So whether you're talking about deleting a race or deleting a driver or deleting whatever, I'm going to have Dakota reach out to you and he can explain to you the intricacies of Race Manager because he's the expert there. Hopefully Dakota's still watching so that he knows to do that. But either way, you got all the schemes created. Add points and pay group here. I'm going to do on the points and pay tab of Race Management. I will select the scheme that I want to use. We'll say tonight is POWRi race, right? POWRi weekly divisions, payout scheme. I'm just going to choose one at random here. Let's say it's a sport compact race for my payouts. This is also where you can tell the program if you want points to apply to competitors or owners or both. This is also where you can tell the program in terms of eligibility if the licensed or temporary licensed drivers is eligible for points, or if only licensed drivers and no temporary licenses are eligible for points, payouts as well. I'm just going to have everybody eligible and add, and there we go. So now my points and pay are done. In the points tab, or the points section, if you have a website through My Race Pass, the points on your website will be updated within about the next 20 to 30 minutes. If you obviously in the app, same thing, the points will be updated 20 to 30 minutes. If you need to do a manual adjustment, you absolutely can. Like if you're going to dock him 20 points for rough driving, or you're going to give him a $50 bonus for being the hard charger, or whatever you want to do, adjustments are there. But again, as long as your schemes are correct, these adjustments should be fairly short, and you should be able to do these types of things pretty easily and quickly. Last step then is the Create Payments button in the lower left. If you hit Create Payments, it pushes all the payout data two places. One, to the 1099 report, which I'll show you in a minute, and two, to the Payments tab of Season Management that on Monday I said we'd come back to. Here we are. You can do a couple of different things from this Payments tab, and this is all divided out by race night and by class. So every class on every race night will have its own entry in here. The default payout option will allow you to tell the program if you're paying via check or cash or direct deposit or whatever else. I'm going to pay via check. If you want to, you can print checks from My Race Pass with the Create Checks option. You just put in the starting check number, print what order you want them printed in, by car number or running order or whatever, and create. And now my checks are ready to print, right? I can hit the print button in the upper right. As long as you've got the right paper and printer, checks are good. They can be printed. Sign them as they come out of the printer. The biggest pain in the neck of the race night is done within 5 minutes. You can also print a report that I use for drivers claiming their money. It has the check number, the amount, and the payee on this report. If the payee is a car owner, the driver's name is listed in parentheses. I just have them sign in the white space. That way I know who's claimed their purse and who has not. You can also print mailing labels. If you want to mail out these 1099 or these checks after the event during the week, you absolutely can. And then there's the QuickBooks export option. If you enter the bank account and expense account that you've got in QuickBooks, you can upload a file to QuickBooks with all of this information if you use that to track your financials. And then you can shut the lights off and go home, if only it were that easy. But that's basically race management. I mean, that's the setup tab. That's entries, lineups, results, points, and payouts. That's managing a race night in a nutshell here. I'm going to show you one other thing. It's our 1099 report. If you just go to the payouts tab, there's the 1099 report at the bottom of the screen. This will show you a yearly summary and then broken it out by each payee, the amount of money that they've earned throughout the course of the year, as long as it was more than $600. If they're an owner, if they're a competitor, you can audit this list or whatever else. So I'm going to use myself as an example here. This is a great reason to have this and audit this list. I see two entries for myself, my owner profile, my driver profile. So if you know that all of the money that I made this year is supposed to go to my owner profile, and now it's split in two, this is a reason to get in contact with My Race Pass and say, hey, there is an issue. We have got a race night where driver was not, or owner was not checked for this driver. We got to get this figured out. That way I can fix it before you have to worry about it at tax time. So audit this list every once in a while. Make sure it's the way it's supposed to be. You can export this information via PDF or via Excel. I've got at mrphelp.com. One of our knowledge base articles is on 1099s where I've recorded a video that's about 9 minutes long. It took me about 9 minutes to do this. But if I can export this into Excel and then upload it into a tax software that I like called W2Mate, I export this into W2Mate, add the social security numbers, because obviously My Race Pass doesn't store those. So wherever you got them stored, add their social security numbers, and then you can manage your 1099s. You can create 1099s, whether you print them or you send them to a tax office in a bundle or whatever. It took me about 9 minutes to take this data out of My Race Pass, combine it with their social security numbers, and have my 1099s ready to be printed either by me or whoever else. So this is a valuable thing. The other question that I get at the end of the year is, hey, I've got drivers without an address here. How do I get their addresses? That's why you have a registration out there. Have them complete a registration. Let them audit their own information. Let them give you their addresses as opposed to you chasing these people down. I just think it's so valuable to have a registration out there and have it be completed. And this is one of the reasons why. Yeah, that's really what we had to talk about today. That's everything I wanted to show you today. Friday, both at 1 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Central, we'll talk about websites. We'll talk about general admission tickets. We'll talk about reserve tickets. We'll talk about news articles as kind of a cap on this week's webinars. So, feel free to come in on Friday as well. I appreciate you taking time out of your evening tonight. I know that this is family time for everybody, so thanks for taking time out of that to learn more about My Race Pass, become more well in tune with the program and what we can offer. Look forward to chatting with you all Friday. This recording will be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow for your review. And until then, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll talk to you later.